Up until that, while I was having my epidural, that's when I signed it. I was just like, can't be my story. I really didn't want it to be my story. Like what C-section entails and everything like that, postpartum, but there's just something in me that was like, no, this is not, I just want everything natural. I've always been like a natural, that's my stance.
A big welcome to you, Vanessa. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to hear about your journey. And before we get into your pregnancies, let's get into your story before you became a mother. Who's Vanessa?
Um, Vanessa, I studied, so let's go all the way. I studied architecture technology in Brighton University, and from that, I did in construction as well. So
Oh, wow.
I'm also within the construction. I worked as a design manager for like 8, and since then I've also founded a business called Black Girl Knit Club, where we empower Black women through craft, and we host monthly workshops, and we also bring diversity within the crafts industry. But yeah, I wear many hats. I also do a bit of fashion styling and interior styling as well.
Oh,
So yeah,
amazing. I'm always
yeah,
intrigued.
no,
I'm always intrigued to meet women who are in construction. What kind of drew you to that?
I think it was more before my dad passed. Dad passed like in 2000, and he was always like, "Oh, you should be like this, you should do this." I was just like, "Oh, I was into art anyway." So then I tried to like think, okay, what else could I do? It's like I'm art, but I didn't want to spend loads of time. I just thought back then you just spend loads of time just drawing. It was a bit painstaking, just drawing lines and drawing models and stuff. So I said, okay, let me just go into like more construction. And plus, I love like seeing how the building stands up and how it basically works through like form and function and how obviously we live in buildings today and stuff like that. So yeah, I think just help from my dad and then obviously some of my family members are in construction as well. My
Mm.
husband is even an architect and his family is in construction, so that kind of link. But yeah, just wanted to know more about buildings and how it basically stood up, and then was to learn about it. So I didn't do architecture; I did architecture technology, which is more the construction.
Oh, wow. It's always good to know about different
Yeah,
professions outside of what you know. So now I'm always intrigued, especially when it's women in construction.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So let's kind
Mhm.
of go into your first pregnancy. Kind of talk us through
Yeah.
the journey in your first pregnancy, and then we'll go into your labor and birth.
Okay. Her first pregnancy was not planned, but a bit of a surprise. I've been married 8 years now, but during that time we were, and everyone was obviously putting pressure on us. All the aunties and uncles were like, "Oh, what's going on? What's going on?" But we really just wanted to enjoy our marriage
Yeah.
and travel around the world together, which we did, and just kind of develop. So then, yeah, we were pregnant in 2022, 2021, 2020. Yeah, I found out when I was in Ghana, beginning of 2022. And then, yeah, we just had a good time in Ghana. I spent a month out there working as well as obviously living on holiday. And then throughout that year, and we just told family and friends, to see more or less went really, yeah, low risk 2022. Yeah, I had a really good time during, yeah, no risk. All my levels were low. Yeah, they were really supportive. I really wanted to go to the birth center, etc. So, yeah, I was really adamant on obviously having a natural birth. I wasn't too looking back in hindsight, but yeah, my pregnancy was more or less like low risk and I didn't have any symptoms, no sickness, no anything like that. So it was relatively good. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And what was it like
Mhm.
dealing with the NHS during that pregnancy?
And during the pregnancy, I think because it was my first pregnancy, they saw me a bit more frequently supportive, really, especially the midwives were midwives that looked like me, which I felt comfortable with. So, and I saw a lot of the patients were Asian and black women. So that made me feel at ease. And I was also recommended by one of my friends who gave birth there. And he was like, yeah, definitely go to this hospital because it was really, yeah, the good. And yeah, so yeah, being at NHS at that time was up until labour. Yeah.
And then what happened? What happened in the lead up to your labor? And then we'll go into the
Yeah,
labor.
lead up to my labour. I also want to state that my due date was kind of looking back was estimated, which it is. That's not an fact, but it should have been 30 on the day because my son was 10 days. And by that time, also I listened to the NHS advice, knowing that obviously they were giving the best advice for me, that I was 10 days. I was like, okay, yeah, that's the only option, because I thought, okay, 10 days. They kind of scaremonger me into thinking that, oh, after 10 days, or that, oh, I'll be at risk and stuff like that. So I said, okay, like, and well, booked the induction, and then I went in. So knowing I had an aunt there who worked at the hospital, and she found me a room, and she was able to make sure my induction would have gone smooth. But obviously, it depends on the shift and stuff like that. So she was working up to a certain, then another lady, another midwife came in, and she was able to give me the induction drugs and stuff like that. So I stayed there overnight. And I didn't have any contractions or anything, but I thought my waters had broken because I just felt a bit of a gush. I said, okay, just keep monitoring. I wore pads and the waters were clear and everything like that. So I told the midwife that morning when the midwife came in, and she was like, okay. But then, it's like a string. I think it's hormone
That they
supplement that they
insert
put,
the
that they insert. Yeah.
Propess.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Propess. And they put it up there, but at the same time, it fell out while I was on the toilet. And then I notified the midwives. And she was like, oh, can you put it back in? I said, no, because it went in the toilet. And obviously I can't put it
Yeah.
back in because I was a cesarean. And then she was like, okay. But then at that time also, they just kept monitoring me and monitoring baby. I was doing, they monitoring me for hours, and they wanted me to relax. I think my blood pressure was going high and then low, and then he was okay. And all of a sudden my contractions were coming like 5 minutes apart, but like the doctor checked me and my cervix was still closed. Like I think I was only 1 centimeters, and my cervix was still closed. And then they were like, okay, let's keep monitoring. So I was monitoring. And at that time I was obviously still on the bed because I was attached to the monitor. And yes, I wasn't walking around. I wasn't making sure that obviously my cervix was open. I wasn't, doing anything on the ball. I was just literally just lying there. They didn't give any advice at that time or anything like that to make sure that obviously the induction would be smooth or help carry me along, so to speak, so that I can have a natural birth, knowing that all my levels and everything was low. And at that time, I went to the birthing center, but because it was really low staff as well, and the center was closed, all to the wards. So there was no one at the birth center, even though that was in my birth plan and that was my wish. They said there was no staff available. I tried the first day I was there, and then the second day as well, and they were like, no, still no staff. So I was just like, oh, okay, that was a bit like, on hindsight, I should have obviously still pushed. So no one was there to have access to me. So yeah, so my contractions were coming fast, and then they were 5 minutes apart, but still I was still closed. And then they were like, oh, let's transport me to another room. So I was walking while I was having a contraction in another room, and then I think another senior doctor came in and was like, oh, well, sorry, love, we're gonna have to give you a C-section. I'm like, oh no, I don't want that. Like, I don't want that. She tried again. And then me and my husband were like, no, like we don't. And she was like, oh, but then so now all of a sudden the baby's levels, and they're trying to like scaremong me. Like, okay, but look, your baby, something could happen. And then another African auntie nurse was like, come on, you have to do this. This is what you have to do. Like, think of the baby. And I'm like, after going back off, they ruled me into the field. Up until that very moment, while I was having my epidural, that's when I signed it. I was just like, this can't be my story. I really didn't want it to be my story. Like, what C-section entails and everything like that, postpartum. But there's just something in me that was like, no, this is not. I just want everything natural. I've always been like a natural. That's my stance, like natural birth, natural ways of medicine. Like, I don't even take, even if I have a headache or anything, I'd just rather have like a tea or something. I wouldn't even take paracetamol. And my mom's always like, oh, just take it. But I'm just like, I don't want anything to interfere with the way like my body's supposed to do it. Interfere to and the surgery did like, yeah, I do remember the doctor, and I told her on the table, I was like, just please make sure like my scar is nice and stuff. So she was like, make sure I have a good scar. And she was like, yeah, she was like, they were okay and stuff like that, but it just wasn't the birth that I envisioned and I really wanted. And obviously the trauma postpartum and stuff like that, of in hindsight, yeah, it was really, really something. But I mean, he was healthy, and that's the main thing. He was healthy. He came out perfect and everything. So yeah.
And just to backtrack, so you said you were walking to a room and then a doctor came up to you and said you have to have a section. So, like, what was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
like, what did they use as the rationale? Because I imagine you were induced, so normally you would be on the monitor, like you mentioned, and usually it's kind of they are going off what's happening on the monitor. Maybe there's,
Mm.
reduced heart rate. Was any of that happening?
Yeah, they did say there was a rate of my son. And then that's when I was like, okay, also I was a bit scared. I was like, let's see, if that's the
Yeah.
last resort, then that's what I would have to do. But yeah, they was his levels were dropping, not rapidly, but it was like up and
Yeah.
down, but it was more. And then, yeah, that's when the two nurses and the doctor was like, yeah, you have to sign this. You have to this is, we're going to have to transport you to the theater. I was just like, oh, it happened so quickly. Like, happened really quick. Oh. Yeah, really quickly. Yeah.
So even in like the rush of everything, you've now had the section. What was it like in theatre meeting your baby for the first time?
Oh, it was amazing. Remember it. Yeah, it was amazing. And as soon as they brought him out, they put him on my chest. And then me and my husband, like, we were just in, yeah, he was crying as well. And then put him on into the crib bit. Yeah, just made sure that he was okay, gave him vitamin K. It was that feeling is like, as much as obviously the lead up to it wasn't what I wanted, I kind of forget all that. And you're just like, okay, like he's here, he's crying, he's healthy, perfect. And there was no complications of the surgery either. So, yeah.
Mm. And you mentioned
Yeah.
something a few moments ago. You said he was healthy, he was fine, and that's all that mattered. But in many
Mm,
ways, because the birth outcome wasn't really what you wanted, I know mothers say that, a lot of midwives and doctors, well, healthy baby, that's all that matters. But in many ways, it's not, because that kind of experience
mm.
can leave someone very almost resentful, actually. What was your experience going into your postpartum? What was your bonding experience like with your baby?
Bonding experience was fine for me. I think postpartum while I was on the ward, the only things that the ward was obviously noisy. It was hard to sleep at that time. First time mum, you don't know what to do. You're really not sleeping, and you're always checking whether the baby's breathing or something or not. And then, but yeah, the bonding was okay because he latched straight away. There was help from the midwives. Midwives just come around and helped me and know how to breastfeed, which has kept me on this breastfeeding journey now, even though I'm having my second child. Um, yeah, it was okay because he was able to like see me, have skin, sleep on my husband. I think I made sure that there was an intention behind bonding. I think they wanted me to leave or discharge me after like 2 days or a day and a half. And I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. Like, so I think I left on the third day of the morning. So I had 2 full days there just to monitor me and baby and my bleed.
And so in terms of being on a postpartum, did you feel well looked after before you were sort of discharged home?
Yeah, I did. I mean, towards the night, I couldn't really sleep well. As a first time mum, there wasn't much staff at the nighttime compared to the morning time, daytime, should I say. And they were really helpful during the day. The midwives, they were coming to help me, teach me how to breastfeed. That's what I've always gone back to with having my second child as well. But he latched on straight away, just with a bit of help. Yeah, I was well looked after during the day. I think during the nighttime, I think you just have to make sure that they know you're there. Yeah, just make them aware of that you're there. Like when you press the
Yeah.
buzzer, they know it's just this woman, basically. But yeah, it was. And I think they wanted me to leave after, was it a day or 2 days? So I made sure I was like, no, I didn't want to leave because I'll say personal stories of someone who lost their life as a result of being discharged early from C-section. Just wanted to make sure like my bleeding wasn't much clots and stuff like that. And yeah, I stayed there for 2 days and then left on the third day, the 2 days and a half. But yeah, postpartum, yeah, the journey at this hospital was different to being at home. We just made sure that we were just intentional with the fact that he was able to have skin to skin with us, me and my husband. And yeah, making sure that obviously he's fed and whenever he cries, that we're able just to be more intentional with because there's different cries. So just making sure that hear him cry and assume to know what he wants as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And were you well supported in terms of like a family unit around you? Did you feel well looked after at home?
Yeah, yeah. My mum came to play with us for a bit. My husband's mum as well, would come help us like bath the baby, etc. Give baby massages, cook us food as well. Because the recovery with C-section has been totally different to natural birth. Literally night and day. Literally night and day. And yeah, we were well supported because the recovery with C-section was a bit more traumatic in the sense where obviously you have major surgery where they cut through 7 layers of your skin and you're still supposed to bend over while to feed the babies, you're supposed to cut the baby, change the nappy, etc. All those things where you're supposed to do naturally, but you're still healing. So my husband had to help me obviously get out of bed, move my legs. Like it was very traumatic in terms of like I've never really been to hospital for anything. GPs, I'll go obviously because I have to just check over and stuff like that. Yeah, after having surgery and having help to even like walk around and then the medication that they give you after, I suppose is needed. And then the injections as well. Yeah, I wasn't used to any of that. So that all was a bit traumatic for me. And I was so determined to not go through that again. Obviously, my child would have been is two. And running around after a toddler while having major surgery was always in my head. I said, no, I don't want that. I don't want that for my son.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then, so talk about with having that determination, what was your mindset like going into your second pregnancy and what was that like?
And second pregnancy was, once again, was low risk. I put on a bit more weight with second pregnancy. But it was a surprise. I didn't know I was having a girl. I kept that surprise for me because I was like, oh, if this is our last child, this is something I wanted to keep for myself. So with that, so obviously 9 months of not knowing the gender. But with the second pregnancy, wanted to go to birth center again, but I felt rejected because they said, oh no, once you have a C-section, you can't enter any birth center because they want you as low risk as possible. My levels were low and I tried to persuade them. I tried to be like, oh, look at my levels, previous pregnancy, current pregnancy, like, because that's the route I wanted because I was determined. But then I was at a first hospital, someone near work. So that was more like central London, someone near work. I was still going into the office. And then I was having appointments there, etc. And then I think I had a call with you, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it made me realize that they weren't really VBAC friendly. And I also did my research with other statistics and I was also on social media and what they would say about that hospital as well. And I was like, okay, they're not VBAC friendly. What am I doing? It may be good on like statistics and the stats and everything like that, but they're not really VBAC friendly. So
Yeah.
I then had to go to another hospital and make sure I was obviously signed on there before, I think, was it 33 weeks or 30 weeks, something like that, just so that they can obviously know my levels and etc. And they were more feedback friendly. But having a call with you made me also realize that I needed to do my research. I needed to have statistics ready and have questions ready for when I would enroll onto the next hospital, etc., which I did. And it didn't empower me to move forward with that hospital because they also had a feedback consultant. And I was like, okay, that's good. And I saw the VBAC consultant after, I think it was 36 weeks or so. And yeah, so the mindset with this pregnancy was totally different because I did my research and I was able to like vouch for myself. And when they offered me C-section like 2 times. So I said, no, I don't want that. They even booked me for C-section. I didn't support, even though they were VBAC friendly. And I saw the VBAC consultant, they even booked me in for C-section. And I said, this is not what I wanted. So I called them saying, can you cancel my appointments? And they're like, cancel it. I said, yes. And then they had a consultant call me and was like, okay, we're going to book you in for another appointment just to see where your mind's and where your head is at regarding your birth. And I said, yes, in my birth plan, like I really wanted to have a natural birth. I even saw your VBAC consultant and she was determined for me to also have a VBAC. They were all like, it was half and half. Like they were friendly, they were like supportive at a certain degree, but that also some of the consultants were like, oh, I've had a C-section before. So why not just go through it again? But they were like stressing me out towards the end of the pregnancy, even though they knew I wanted to have a natural birth. And then I did
Right.
develop gestational diabetes towards the end, but that was all diet control. So that also caused enough extra stress onto my pregnancy, because I think during the last month or so, obviously I had to make sure I was going on maternity leave, and I had to do a lot of reports as well. Gestational diabetes, diet control. I had to also figure out a total new menu for what I was going to eat and drink during that time. So that's extra thought to think about, as well as making sure that I'm staying active, making sure I'm having my walk throughout the day, just so that I can have this natural birth. Yeah, it seems a bit jumbled, but it was basically like a lot of determination from my end, but a lot of stresses from their end. Yeah. Mm.
And what kind of helped you stay focused? Because in the midst of all the stress, there must be something that helped you visualize
Mm.
your goal. Kind of, what was it? Affirmations, prayer? Like, what kind of helped you kind of, stay determined to reach that goal of a natural birth?
What helped me stay determined was, I'm a Christian, so I would always have prayer with my partner, my husband, about this birth and pregnancy. So I had a birth playlist where I had hypnobirthing, but it was more affirmations of scripture, which I can share with you later. So I would, on my walks, I would always be affirming about this birth and about this pregnancy as well, especially towards the end. I knew I had to stay active, so I knew I had to walk quite a bit and also do my stretches. And I think social media did help as well, because I was following a lot of pages that were like, "Hey, you can do this." And a lot of women had similar stories to me, where they had a C-section, the first child, and then the second child, they're able to have their VBAC, whether it was at home or whether it was, in hospital, but they were still determined to have the natural birth, as was I. But yeah, it was more so prayer and affirmations and birth playlist. And yeah, just thinking that God literally was listening to my heart's desire, because I'd always wanted a natural birth, which I didn't get the first time. And then this time, second time around, I was thinking, yeah, I know I could do this. He will always empower me. Every time after my walk, after I finish listening to my affirmations, he would always be like, yeah, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So always listening to him throughout the pregnancy. Yeah. And every detail, he literally orchestrated every detail.
That is lovely to hear.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were walking, you were being active,
Mhm.
which is really good to hear. Being a midwife, you come across many women who have gestational diabetes, and some of their levels might be really high, but the pattern you tend to see is they will eat a really big meal in the evening and just kind of sit and slouch. They're just not doing anything
Very
and go to bed. Whereas I'd say to them, listen, you can still enjoy the foods you're used to, but just maybe go for a 15-minute walk
well.
after. That
Mhm.
would help to expend some of that energy, that glucose, so that it's not just sitting there. And so it's good to hear, a woman just taking control and taking responsibility for your health. So it's great to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. I also had a ball as well, the exercise
Mhm.
ball, which I did buy at, I was determined. I bought it at like 20 weeks. So it was like 5 months.
Mhm.
I was like, I'm making sure that I was stretching my legs, doing the stretches. So I did have like a exercise routine that I would do in the evenings. Like my husband, that's your best friend. The ball is your best friend. I said, yeah, it has to be, because this is what I wanted, a natural birth. So he was also like encouraging me throughout the way, along the way. And yeah, I had a ball, I'll go for walks, and with the diet, with the gestation diabetes, I'll also make sure that I had fresh veg, meat as well. Yeah, just stuff that will make my levels go down as well. Because also I've been monitored. I didn't monitor it every day, but the days that I did it, I had to make sure that, yeah, the levels were fine, and exercise definitely helped. I would also squat for 2 minutes every day. I'd walk, I'll run around with my toddler, I'll do the curb walking up and down as well in my garden. I was definitely determined. I was definitely determined. Yeah.
Nice. And then talk about the days leading up to that second birth. What was it like dealing with the midwives at the hospital? What was that exchange like?
They already were like, okay, you don't want a C-section, but we'll book your induction. They really wanted to book my induction on the day of my due date. But I was like, no, let's just wait for my due date to come and go. If it goes and my baby's not here yet, then I'll think about induction. So then they were like, okay, let's book it for that Monday. So on that Friday, 20th September, I did have a suite though. I had a suite on that day. And then I thought, okay, nothing of it, 'cause I didn't feel anything. I was just like, okay, if the baby comes, I know God, you have a plan, ultimate plan. So I'll just wait. And then, yeah, the 20th, my due date came. We're talking about you. My due date came on that 20 on the Saturday. And then that was just an all day. So I went out with my family. I was still trying to be active. We went into central London, took train. So I was able to get my steps in, train there and back. They were always calling me because I'd had appointments. They booked it on that Friday, the Saturday, the Sunday, and then the Monday for induction. So I was just like, they would call me 3 times a day. The hospital, I guess there is a level of care that they do show, which I do understand. But at the same time, I was like, I already said to them my stance. I was like, let's wait for my due date. This is more or less my first time having a baby naturally, because obviously I had it through C-section, and this time it's natural way. So babies don't normally come on their due date anyway. So I said, okay, let's wait for my due date to come and go. And they called me, yes, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because I didn't attend the appointments. Obviously, they saw it as a DNA. I did not attend. So obviously I suppose they were worried. So yeah, they'll call me like 2-3 times a day on that Saturday. The Sunday, I would ignore it. So on that Sunday, I went for an hour and a half walk. I researched on how the baby can come obviously naturally, but fast. So there was something called the mile circuit. Yeah, mile circuit, which is obviously exercise that will help you induce labor naturally and obviously help the baby come faster. So I would do my walks, I would do my stretches, I'll do the positions, I'll do my curb walk. I did that all on that Sunday. And then my waters broke on the Monday afternoon. But it was just like a little trickle throughout that whole day. Monday, the trickle would go throughout the whole day. And I thought, okay, yeah, I let my husband know, but because I didn't have any contractions, yeah, I didn't feel the need to alert anyone except for my husband. And obviously that was the day of my induction, but I still didn't go. I know it's a risk, but I still didn't go because I
What's the risk?
don't know. That's the thing. I don't know, because they think they do know more than me to a certain extent, like medically. But yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't know what the risk is actually.
I will just interject by
Yeah.
saying the thing with dealing with the NHS is that it's governed by assessments and protocols and timelines and guidelines. And women are just not that. We're not charts and numbers.
Yeah.
And so the reason why it's important for me to state that is that so many women, like in your position, would have felt very pressured to go in. And it literally would have been a sliding doors moment where, and I'm sure you're about to review in a second what happened, but rather than the beautiful experience that you had, they would have gone down this rabbit hole of interventions. Oh, it's not working out. Let's go and save your baby's life and rush you off the theater. And a lot of the time, I'm not saying that hospitals don't have their place, because they definitely do. But a lot of the time, the pregnancy itself is not a medical condition. Yes, there may be women who have medical conditions who happen to be pregnant, but the pregnancy itself, for most healthy women, it will have a good outcome if it's not intervened and tampered with. Because that word risk, it carries so much weight to where, oh my gosh, I've been a naughty girl, I didn't go in for my induction. It's like, why do it
I
need
know,
to be
I
induced?
know. And yeah, I think it made me feel like that, because it was like,
Of
I remember one
course.
consultant was like, oh, like, it's up to you what happens to your baby. I know you want the best, but something fatal might happen. I was like, and this was on that Friday, the last appointment. I was just like, actually, you guys are really trying to put stress onto my head. It wasn't even needed at that moment. So the Monday was when I was supposed to go for my induction. Obviously, they were still calling because I DNA the appointments and the induction as well. And what had broke at that time, I didn't need to alert my husband or anyone else at that moment because I didn't have contractions. And also, I'd read up at that point that because I didn't have contractions, or I'm not sure how dilated I was either. I didn't need to go into hospital. at that point. I'd felt strongly like in my gut, or God was telling me that it's okay, just stay rested. And at that time, and my son has gone to nursery on like Monday, and everything was just normal. I wasn't having contractions. I was just trying to stay active, etc. And then the Tuesday, so then my first contractions was on that Tuesday morning at 4 a.m. I got woken up to contractions, but it was painful, but it was bearable. And then the next contraction was at like 6 a.m. So I thought, okay, it's 2 hours. That's like, there's no need for me to even go to hospital, because I was like, I don't know how dilated I am. Like at that point, I didn't know how to measure it apart from the contractions. And that was 2 hours apart. So then throughout that day, I was having contractions. I even dropped my son at nursery at 9 a.m., even though I was having contractions. And that time it was coming a bit fun. So that was like maybe 1 hour having contractions. I was like, okay, but it's still not bad. So I just went about my business, came home, I watched Homes Under the Hammer, which was like 10 a.m. or so. And then, yeah, I was just there trying to rest. But then as I was resting, I realized that it was worse for me to lie down. So I was just trying to walk around at home, trying to do what I need to do at home. Yeah, try to do what I need to do at home. So I dropped my son and my husband off around 9 a.m. And then he was at work. I told him to try and come home early, because I thought maybe baby will come. Baby will come. Yes. And then he came home around 3, 3 getting to 4. And then by that time, our contractions would come in like every 10 minutes. So then I was in the bath, and that time he came home, I was in the bath and had a nice warm hot bath, listening to my birth playlist, my affirmations still. Just like in your environment, you're just like, okay, like you're in pain. The hot water was soothing me still. Also, let me get ready, came out the bath, let me get ready, pick up my son, and then go to the hospital. So I was still in the house, and I was like, oh, I need to cream myself. I was like, I don't want to be dry. I don't want to be dry. Let me cream myself. I need to cream myself. I was like, I need to. So then I went into my room,
Priority.
the shea butter. I was just creaming myself. Then I felt another contraction. I was like, let me just sit down. Let me just sit down, cream myself, cream my legs. And then my birth playlist was still playing. And then I just, that contraction was really strong and it was really close. And I just thought, okay, maybe it's coming. Maybe it's coming. But I was still, sorry, honey. But I was still like, I still need to get ready. So I was still like in my towel, naked, just creaming myself. I was taking my time because the contractions were coming in between. And he was like, oh, come on, V, come on, let's go. So as I was going to the bathroom to obviously get things to get dressed, I was like, Kingsley, that's his name, come with me. Like I feel like I really urge to push, like I need your hand. So I'm gonna go and sit on the toilet. So I went, sat on the toilet, and I squeezed his hand so hard, and a gush of water just came out. I said, oh, this is like the movies. I was just like, oh, the gush came out. The water was like clear and stuff. And then I stood up. I was just like, oh, what is that? It just, I don't know, I stood up, but then her head was there already. So it felt like that was like one push altogether. The water came out, and then I was squeezing his hand, and I stood up. That was her head there. So that was one push. And I was like, look, her head is here. I said, the head is here. I didn't know what I was having. I said, the head is here. And then he was like, oh my gosh, you need to call the ambulance. Call the ambulance. They came within 3 minutes, which was quick because the hospital near me is literally 3 minutes away. But that's not the hospital I was at because of stories. Yeah, I didn't really want to, ended up there anyway, but I didn't really want to be there, but ended up there anyway. So they came within 3 minutes. And yeah, the second push, he caught her as she was coming out. Like she basically slid out because I feel like aqua water definitely contributed towards that because I was drinking my aqua water every day since the 36 weeks, and raspberry leaf tea as well. So yeah, she like her shoulders, everything came out. So it was like after the second push, and then yeah, he caught her while he was on the phone to the ambulance, and they instructed him what to do, hold her up towards me, and yeah, and then the ambulance came. 4 men came upstairs. It did bother me because they've probably seen everything. I was just there sitting on the toilet, and then with the lid closed, and then yeah, they came and they instructed my husband to come and cut the umbilical cords, and then they took the baby. I did have skin to skin, and then they took the baby to another room to wrap her up. And then yeah, they just because I did lose a bit of blood, so then they escorted me to hospital, and then I was in there for a day just for observation. because of gestational diabetes, they were saying, and losing the blood and making sure she was okay, etc. And
How much blood did you lose, do you know?
I think they said it was like 400, 500 mil, I think.
Okay, but
Yeah,
that's minimal.
yeah,
It's been average.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But obviously seeing it all in the bathroom, you're like, oh, it's
Yeah, no.
lot, a lot of blood. But yeah, the ambulance and the team, they were very helpful. Obviously, they wanted to make sure that the baby was fine, she was fine, and I was fine. But yeah, it happened so quickly. But that was basically it.
Oh.
That's basically it. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. And how did you feel in that moment where it's like you're getting ready to go to the hospital? Next thing you know, you're in the toilet, and next thing you know, your baby girl is like,
I know.
is there.
It happened so quickly. My husband took a video of me. Obviously, they were wrapping her up, and I was just there, and I was just like, I couldn't believe it at the same time because that's when I found out the gender, and I was like, oh, it's just a girl. There's like different moments that I can reflect back to, and just I was just thanking God, really. Yeah, I was just thanking God, and I do want to get the telephone recording as well of when we called the ambulance just to hear everything that happened. I think I have to put in a request um for the data protection, whatever. But yeah, I felt empowered. Like even so when we got to hospital for observation, like I'm 2 hours after I gave birth, like, I was able to walk around, which was different, totally different compared to the first birth, my first birth of having a C-section. Yeah. But yeah, I felt empowered. I still feel empowered now because it's like I did it.
Mm.
Like I totally did it. And I thank God tremendously because he literally listened to my heart's desire, and he literally granted my heart's desire. And yeah, he was there through every step of the way. Yeah, even looking back, the contractions were more painful than the actual birth because she basically stood out in two pushes, and it was amazing just seeing how her first moment they were at home, and me and my husband, and then obviously the ambulance came, the team came. It was different, totally different, unmedicated. I look back and think, wow, I actually did unmedicated, no medical intervention, more or less like a free birth. Secretly, I did want a home birth, but obviously I didn't want it with my closest hospital. But yeah, I got it in the end.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And your stay in the hospital, so it was one day, they're just kind of doing basic observations and
Yeah.
then you were discharged?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they took bloods. They did all the tests on her. They did tests on me. Yeah, just blood pressure, and it was basically blood pressure, and if I was able to pass urine and stuff like that. And yeah, it wasn't anything invasive at all. I think it was necessary because obviously I lost blood at home. Not a lot, but I lost blood at home, and obviously gestational diabetes. Checked her, did all the necessary checks, and yeah, I was discharged over
Mm.
yeah a day after a day. And that was I was more comfortable with being discharged.
And so you mentioned, Vanessa, being and feeling empowered. For women who have similar experiences to you, the first type of birth that you had, what would you advise them going into the second pregnancy? What kind of advice would you give them in order for them to feel the same thing you felt?
Yeah, I think I would want to break it down into practical and mental advice. Practical advice, definitely stay active. You do your research and stay in different positions and stretches that will help you just be able to physically give birth. I think that's very important, as well as obviously diet. You can still enjoy foods and eat what you want, etc. But obviously just be mindful that it could creep up on you if they say you have developed gestational diabetes. But yeah, just eat foods that could give you energy, and but definitely stay physical throughout the pregnancy. I know it's difficult now, so after you eat, when you have a first child as well, like after you've done the bedtime routine, it's 8, 9 o'clock. After you sit before you sit down, it's like now you have time to eat. But even if it's like during the summer periods and stuff, just try to go for a walk, or even if it's in your house, being on the exercise ball, or just try to walk around in the house, do squatting activities. That definitely helped me. Another physical thing I would say is just make sure that you and your partner are just having like levels of oxytocin in terms of, or try to develop levels of oxytocin, hugging and stretching and one another. Like I would stretch like my legs and stretch my arms. Like he be used as is a way to bring you two close together as well. Stay physically active with your partner as well as exercising. Mentally, definitely try and do your research for your hospitals, if they're like VBAC friendly, if they've got a VBAC consultant, even if they don't, and advocate for yourself and do your own research in terms of looking at statistics and what else. Yeah, just have more conversations with your consultants, with your midwives, and just make sure that your birth plan is also detailed and they are able to review and know what you want as well.
You mentioned advocacy. How easy do you think it was to advocate for yourself?
I think with me, I'm more like, I'm not anti-establishment, but I'm more like, um, I know what's right for me and my body, and obviously God has the ultimate say anyway. I feel like he is the one who empowered or gave the knowledge to these doctors anyway. So I'm like, there is a higher power to everything that obviously that I do, and I know and I acknowledge that as well. So um, going back to what you said, I think it was easier for me because of the first experience. I think it's unfortunate I had to go through the first experience, but I think it's important for me that I needed to go through that so that I was able to know certain details for this second pregnancy and acknowledge the power of God in science as well, and know that He is able to make like my dreams and my desires a reality. But yeah, advocacy it was easier for me because I know what I want and I always go for it. And obviously, it's the confidence as well. Having
Right.
a husband who always encouraged me during like my appointments and stuff like that. He wasn't attending all appointments, but I know I would discuss it beforehand because sometimes it's like you have their agenda in the back of your mind, and it's like you don't want to adhere to their agendas, but you also know the conversation that you have with God and with your husband going into those appointments. It was easier for me because I was having those conversations with even with some women around. Like I wouldn't let everyone know that I would want a natural birth,
Yeah.
but those who did know, they would empower me, they would even pray for me. And yeah, it was important to have conversations.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Kingsley. I'm Rosemary.
Good girl. Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you for joining.
That's-
Would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Hi, I'm Kingsley, husband to Vanessa, father to Afia and Lael. Oh yeah, a good person. Hopefully.
I just wanted to hear sort of from the male perspective, what was your experience comparing both births?
Mhm.
How did that feel for you as a husband, as a father?
Ooh. Okay, big question.
Go back.
I have to go back. I'm just
Yeah.
taking my head back. First of all, I'd like to say it's the only job I've ever started and retired the same day. No, it was a blessing to see her come through outside of the hospital. When I went to work that day, I was just like, please, just don't let the baby come whilst I'm at work. I'm coming home early. We're going to try and do the big push once we get to the hospital or wherever it happens. And then on the way back on the train, I was just praying and praying. I was like, God, please, let me just get home. At least let there be a second person at home. And then when I got home, I was like, oh, thank God, nothing's happened. But then I could see that she was obviously breathing a lot, breathing heavy,
And contractions.
having contractions, and we were close to the due time. I just remember having a shower, thinking, okay, because of what happened with Lael, I just wanted to make sure I was better prepped. So have a shower, make sure that everything's in the bag now this time around, and yeah, just go for it. I had a shower, and then Vanessa had a shower, and then
Yeah, I was in a bath.
she was in a bath, sorry, not shower. And I was just like, okay, she's taking a bit longer than usual. So, okay. So I'm just in and out of in and out of the office, and I'm just looking over at Vanessa. I'm like, yeah, you're not leaving, and you're not leaving anytime soon, are you? And I must have knocked on the door because she'd locked the door, and I was like, why is the door locked? And then she was like, do you know, I didn't think it was just routine. And then I was like, okay, cool. So then she managed to open and everything, and I said, okay, cool, she's fine. And when she came out, she went to Lael's room to have a seat and clean herself and listen to gospel music and so on. So then I was just like, okay, she's taking a long time. I was going to say your sweet time, but be correct. She was taking her time. And then I was like, okay, we need to go now because we need to go and pick up Lael, at least get him so that wherever I need to drop him off, I can drop him off. Things like that. But then she just started breathing more and more fast. And that's when I started thinking, and then I was just, okay, so this is happening here. And then I just heard a gush of liquid just come out from you, and I was like, oh, okay, so we're doing this here. But then, obviously, everything that we'd watched, everything that we'd read about, it wasn't clicking in my head what to do. So it was just like, I just remember she kept saying, you have to reassure me, you have to give me words of affirmation, like positive words and kind words. And so I started doing that, and then things just fast forwarded quick after that. I just remember just her pushing I think the second time, and then I saw her head and everything just coming out slowly. And I was like, no way. And then at this point, I'm thinking, okay, I need to call the ambulance because I'm not sure what happens when she actually comes out. So then I'm on the phone to the ambulance, and they're like, is the baby this? Is the baby that? And I can't remember half the questions they asked. And I just remember, as I was on the phone, because Kingsley, you have to catch her. And I was, sorry, catch the baby. And then I dived in to catch the baby whilst literally, I think maybe her waist or something. That was the bit I saw. And I literally caught her just before it hits the floor because she was standing up at this point. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, this has happened. But then in my head, I was like, I started thinking about Hollywood. The baby's supposed to cry immediately once the baby leaves the womb. And I was like, why is the baby not crying? But obviously, possibly a shock, I don't know. But once I picked her up and saw her, obviously, I knew the gender of the baby, but you didn't know. So then you were like, it's a girl. And I was like, yeah, but in my mind, I'm thinking, doesn't she know it's a girl? But whilst I was on the phone to them, they were downstairs. They'd already got here. So I was like, oh, that was quick. Obviously, the 4 guys or 5 guys came up, and then I was like, oh, okay, this is awkward. But it's part of life. They were all good. But one of them in particular, he went through everything rigorously. Like, he was making sure that everything was fine with the baby. He would come in and out Lael's room into the bathroom just to make sure both parties are fine. And then I watched them put her in some sort of blanket, some warmer blanket thing. And I was just like, this is amazing. It's just literally over in a few seconds. And obviously you were sitting there, and I felt sorry for you because she wasn't with you.
She wasn't the first time.
So when they asked me from when they asked me to cut the cord, then she went, oh, yeah, I'll put her on you. And then, okay, pour her up, And then, then after that, I was just like, thank God, that was it. That was like I say. In comparison to Lael, massive difference.
What was the difference?
Oh, between Lael?
And
Lael's one was, I don't even know if the word traumatic, but it was like, everything was zoomed in and it was fast forwarding. But at the same time, there was pressures from this nurse, that nurse, this nurse. And then we have to go to theatre and you have to sign your waiver. You have to do this. So it was like, it was very uncomfortable. And I would say,
almost like we didn't have a say.
You have to think about the baby. You're being selfish. You're doing this. Obviously, some of the nurses, they were African. Obviously, they know we're African. So they're trying to relate on that level. And it was just I just didn't want to go through that again with Afia. So we thank God that she came out the way she came and they're not through C-section, sorry. Well, not to say there's anything wrong with C-section, but it was just a traumatic.
Yeah, if it's not something that you've wanted to have and then suddenly you're thrown into it, of course, it would definitely be traumatic.
Yeah.
And then having been through those very different type of births, for other dads, what kind of advice would you give to them in terms of supporting their women, their wives to give birth?
I'll probably say constant positive words. If you can be physical in terms of touching and just soothing, and if you can set up things in a way where you've got her favorite playlist on, or if you've got like a diffuser that she loves that scent or whatever, just to make sure that the room or the environment is sound for the mother. Because I believe the better relaxed she is, the better chance is that the baby will come through the vaginal way. So I'd say, support them with words. If you know what they like in terms of music, sound, scents, even if there's water, you need to go and get it, a bottle of water. Just make sure everything's there so that when it comes to pushing and recovering, everything's just there for her to feel comfortable in as well.
And then final question to both of you. How important was it for you both to be on the same page, like throughout the pregnancy? Because even as a midwife, I've seen the birth experience make or break a relationship. So how important was that for you?
I think it's very important for you to be on the same page because like it starts off with a united front with obviously at the hospital. So when you're at the hospital, they know your stance, they know obviously your birth plan when it gets to it, and having a partner informed of that decision. And obviously, it doesn't always come through. You're the one obviously carrying the baby and you're delivering the baby, but making sure that your partner is aware of your birth plan and your stances, even when you're dealing with the healthcare at the time of appointments, I think it's very important. I also think that, just making sure that he's aware. Obviously, when it comes to appointments, he can't attend every appointment, but making sure that you two are communicating in terms of knowing what happened at the appointment. Are you happy? Are you not? Why? Just details, making sure that he's I'll make sure that also I'm active and everything, and he would encourage me. Anything else to add?
I was saying, men, support your words. Whether they're showing you a video at 2 a.m., 1 p.m., 9 a.m., or a technique or some sort of vlog, just listen out. Try and obviously decipher what's what, because sometimes it could be so much, not jargon, but so much so many terms that you're just not familiar with. And it just takes a few minutes to research what those words mean, how to go about X, Y, and Z. So I would say being on the same page, it also includes obviously reading the same literature and watching the same videos. I would say, just try and jump on board the best way you can. Not everything is going to be absorbed and retained in your memory, because it's not something that you studied for a long period of time. It's just something that's just for those obviously 9 months, and then you hope to retain that information. But if you don't revisit it, then obviously it gets lost. So I would say, being on the same page is massively important. If there are disagreements, try to come to some sort of compromise in terms of your birthing plan or the after post-birth. If there is something that you're like, do you know what, I'd rather we go down this route because of X, Y, and Z. Obviously bring valid points, make sure that you're both okay with that. And you're facing healthcare professionals as well. If there's something that you both disagree with and you're like, you know what, we don't agree with that, just support your partner either way. And if there is something that like that, oh, we'd rather you have a C-section over this because you're at high risk. But then meanwhile, you know that the build up towards this appointment she was never at high risk in previous appointments. But now all of a sudden, where did that come from? Is it because you want us to go through this quickly and book an appointment? So just being on that same page is, I'll say massively important.
Oh, amazing. Thank you both so much, Vanessa, Kingsley.
So,
Vanessa, is there any projects you want to promote? Where can people find you if they wanted to get in touch?
My personal page, you can find me at VEA_K. Also, you can find my other works on my other businesses at Black Girl Knit Club as well. But thank you so much, Rosemary, for having us.
Thank you so much. It's been so lovely talking to you both, and just amazing to get both perspectives as well. Wishing you all the best. Take care.
I appreciate you for listening or watching. If you'd like to get in touch or have a story you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach us through our website, houseofrosemary.com, or on Instagram, House of Rosemary, where we share posts on herbs, periods, and pregnancy. Take care.